A few years ago, this terrible video went around the world. In it, some African soldiers are holding innocent women and children under cruel circumstances. This crime remained unsolved for years and nobody knew who the perpetrators were, let alone where this crime had taken place. Until you asked Google Maps for help. But you'll find out the whole story in a moment. Today we show you a series of violent crimes that were discovered on Google Maps and solved with the help of Google Maps. You can expect violent raids, tracking down Italy's most dangerous mafia boss and probably the most mysterious Google Maps recording from a small German town of all places. And of course much, much more. So be sure to stay tuned. Here at Wikivedia Plus. Let's start with the Gioacchino Gamino case. This is considered one of the most dangerous mafia bosses of all time and was wanted for over 20 years. In 2002, he spectacularly escaped from a prison in Rome after being sentenced to several years in prison for murder and numerous other crimes. After his escape, however, the authorities did not know which country he was in, nor did they have any witnesses who could give them any advice. And so the mafioso lived undercover for 20 years at large. After actually giving up all hope, the police suddenly got lucky in early 2022. The investigators accidentally discovered a suspicious recording on Google Maps. This footage showed a man standing in front of a tiny greengrocer's shop in a small town near Madrid, talking to another passerby. It was immediately clear to the officers that this had to be Gamino, who had somehow made it to Spain 20 years earlier and had established a new identity there under a false name and was now a supermarket owner. With an arrest warrant still outstanding against him, Gamino was immediately arrested by the Spanish police and will soon be extradited to Italy. It will probably no longer be visible on Google Maps. Let's continue with the case of the American William Malt. William Malt was a perfectly normal family man who took a little jaunt around his home state of Florida in his car one night 20 years ago. However, he never returned from this tour. Without saying goodbye to anyone or giving any other warning, he disappeared without a trace. His family already assumed that he was the victim of a cold kidnapping. However, 20 years later, the mystery solved itself with the help of Google Maps. When a bored neighbor wanted to see his neighborhood from above, he looked a little too close to the village lake. However, what he saw there shocked him deeply. At the bottom of the lake you could see the wreck of William Malt's car. The police immediately began the salvage, and DNA traces of Malt were indeed found in the car. So the only explanation was that Malt must have had an accident 20 years ago and died in the lake together with his car, and even if this doesn't bring him back to his family, without the Google Maps recording you would probably still be after him today. It continues in Eastern Europe, where an unbelievable scene can still be seen on Google Maps to this day. If you click through the streets there, you suddenly see a police car driving through the streets with fists. A few corners further, the dramatic reason for this journey becomes apparent. In fact, two students had just robbed a jeweler at the time. The young perpetrators then engaged in a heated chase with the police and the Google car in the middle. In fact, the local officials were able to catch the perpetrators, so that they were subsequently sentenced to imprisonment. Next, we come to a truly disturbing case that shows how cruel some people in this world can be. A few years ago, a video circulated in the darkest corners of the internet showing how terrible things were being done to women and children that we cannot go into detail here. For years, no one could be prosecuted for these crimes. Even the best investigators eventually ran out of ideas. Nevertheless, journalists made one last attempt, and they carefully compared the roads, shadows, valleys and mountains seen in the video with all possible images from Google Maps. Google Maps was now so advanced that such a precise comparison was possible. And indeed, at some point they found out that the horror happened in Cameroon on the border with Nigeria, and the perpetrators are members of the Boko Haram group due to the shadows cast on the video and the dryness of the trees. The journalists were even able to reconstruct that the crime took place in March 2015. They even found out which Cameroonian soldiers resembled the perpetrators in the video, which led to the arrest of 7 criminals. This investigative success was considered by many to be absolutely impossible. Thanks to the help of Google Maps, however, these criminals could also be arrested. From Africa, we are now traveling back to Europe, more precisely to Switzerland. Anyone who thought that nature in Switzerland is only harmonious and harmless has not seen this picture. As early as 2009, at a time when Google Maps only existed in the form of its predecessor Google Earth, a Swiss police officer wasted his time observing the nature of his country on his computer. Suddenly, however, he noticed a piece of land that didn't really fit into the picture. Upon closer inspection, he realized that he had found one of the largest illegal marijuana farms in Europe here. A total of 1 ton was harvested and sold here at regular intervals against the law. The policeman immediately informed his colleagues and 16 drug dealers were arrested on the farm. In hindsight, they probably regret that they couldn't hide their weed under a photo-protected roof. In our next case, the Google Maps footage captured something so shocking that the best forensic and criminal investigators had to be called in to get to the bottom of it. In 2013, these satellite images were taken of a jetty on a lake in a small village in California. Immediately, most internet users agreed that this had to be the removal of someone who had lost his life only moments before. The trail of blood, which apparently ended at the edge of the lake, seemed too obvious and too cruel. The authorities immediately began the investigation. Incredibly, when they arrived at the scene, the jetty was spotless and there was no blood anywhere. Nevertheless, the detectives continued to research and consider how the blood could have spread in this way and had various theories, which, however, could never be clearly proven. Incidentally, the case has not been resolved to this day. At some point the investigation was stopped and some experts even say today that you would only see a wet dog that had discolored the wood of the jetty with the dripping water. What do you all mean? Write it to us in the comments. Was a person actually eliminated here, or is there a much more harmless explanation for this? Let's move on to our next case where Google Maps actually helped locate a stolen item. A while back, a British family had their caravan stolen from their driveway while they were out shopping. For weeks there was no trace until the son of the family looked at his own street on Google Maps out of boredom. What he saw there was just crazy. Miraculously, the Google Maps car seemed to drive past the house just as a mysterious man was pulling his car into the driveway. It quickly became clear to everyone that it was the thief who was hitching the caravan to his own car. However, he was not able to enjoy his stolen goods for very long, because by tracing the number plate he was caught within a very short time. By the way, not only thieves, but also tax fraudsters are not safe from Google Maps. At least not in Greece. If you want to build a private swimming pool in your garden, for example, you have to register this with the tax office beforehand, as there are certain pool taxes in Greece. However, when the Athens local government conducted a random survey a few years ago, they noticed something very curious. Despite summer temperatures of sometimes over 40 degrees, just 300 pools were registered in the capital with almost 700,000 inhabitants. Out of sheer interest, they then looked on Google Maps to see how many pools there actually were on the Athenians' private property. Lo and behold, the tax office found an incredible 16,000 private swimming pools, all of which were built illegally and thus passed the tax authorities tax-free. Luckily, the tax office now also knew where the perpetrators lived and could therefore ask each individual to pay. Finally, we come to Germany, where this picture appeared on Google Maps in 2010. In the middle of the Zwergasse in Mannheim, a naked man appeared to be lying in the trunk of his car, while a motionless dog was in the driveway. No one could say exactly what had happened here. Some suspected the man must have killed the dog somehow and then hid in the trunk. Others claimed that the dog was sleeping and the man was locked in the trunk by a third person who had left the location shortly before and was able to free himself. Still others said that this was just a perfidious joke to demonstrate against the controversial Google Maps street photos. At the end of the day, no one has been able to say definitively what exactly happened here. Things got too hot for Google, however, and it was decided to remove the image from Maps, as they couldn't be sure that a crime hadn't actually happened here. What do you think happened there? Write it to us in the comments. Otherwise, feel free to check out this video from us and subscribe to Wikivedia Plus for more. Until next time here at Wikivedia Plus.